Saraswati. She's a well-known author, social media activist, a spiritual leader, and has just written a book called Hollywood to the Himalayas, Our Journey of Healing and Transformation. I definitely know and understand what a big deal it is for you to be here and how Catherine has invited you, so thank you so much for showing up and being here for all of us and sharing your testimony.
What a joy to be here. I came in straight from the airport, hence having missed the first part of it. The 6 a.m. flight was the first one I could get out of LA, and by the time it landed and I got here straight, it was in the middle of it. But fortunately, things ran late, and so I was actually able to hear so much more than I had anticipated I would be able to hear. I figured I was gonna get there just by the last minute and not have the benefit of having listened to people. And I feel so grateful, so privileged, so blessed to be able to be in this room. When I think of hope, I think of the tribe that had come together to pray for rain. There had been no rain for years. The ground was parched. Nothing was growing. They'd come together to pray for rain. And all of the elders come, and everybody comes, and the whole community comes. Everyone comes together. And in the midst of the gathering, they look over and there's a young boy with an umbrella. That young boy with the umbrella, to me, is what hope means. Amazingly, he was the only one who had showed up with an umbrella, which is why it's a story. Because when you've got thousands of people coming together to pray for rain, to do rain songs, rain dances, rain chantings, but no one actually brings an umbrella, makes you wonder. But a little boy did. And to me, he is the embodiment of what we mean by hope, meaning, yes, things are dark. Yes, we pray, we hope that at some point in the future, things will be different. And in this very moment, we know it to be so. That knowing it to be so, even if it hasn't manifested yet, is to me that great power of hope. When I moved to India now almost 27 years ago, one of the most powerful experiences at the beginning, I had been there, I don't know, maybe a year maximum. And we went to see a group of 10 or 11 schools in a slum area. Awful slum, I mean the type that I had only seen in movies. And we had gone to see them because they were all being run by a trust. And that trust had run out of money. But kids came every day, and teachers came every day. And even though they came to sit in just little shacks that had no floor and no electricity and no nothing, they were schools. And so the head of the trust had gone to my guru and had said, would you be able to adopt these schools? Because he knew that we are deeply committed to action. Meditation in action, prayer in action. And so he says to me, would you like to go see these schools? And I said, of course, yes. So we go. And you walk in to a shack. And when I say shack, that is a euphemism. It was essentially some scraps of wood, some scraps of cloth, a bit of tarpaulin. There was no floor, it was dirt. There was no roof. There were slabs of things that kept most of the rain out, not much. Inside were children lined up in immaculate rows. Outside, their little slippers were lined up. Now, kids from the slums, what do they have? Nothing. Little plastic, the what you would wear in a bathroom. Little plastic slippers, rubber plastic. But they're lined up outside because this place is a temple. It's a shack to us, but it's a temple to them. And you go in, and at the front of the classroom, a young girl is leading all of these kids in the recitation of prayers and mantras. And at the end of them, she says to them, I'll give you the English. She said it in Hindi, but I'll give you the English. Who's going to serve the people of the world? And these kids who had slipped through the hands of time, these kids who the world had forgotten, these kids who had nothing in their bellies, nothing on their backs, nothing in anything they could call their own, every one of them raised their hands and chanted, "We will, we will." And it hit me so deeply. What are they going to do for the world? They have nothing. And yet, this is the core of hope. Because in this moment, yes, A, we are tiny little kids. B, we have nothing, we know nothing. And C, in this moment we know what we say to be true, which is we will be those who serve this nation and this world. That is hope. So hope, to me, is, yes, an awareness. It's not that we've glossed over the truth. Hope is not blind by any means. Hope is eyes wide open, but eyes so wide open that they actually can see beyond the darkness. And they can see in the darkness the light. It's not just a matter of there will be a light. But even in the darkness, the awareness that even if the only light here is the light in me, there is light. And to be together with you all today, gathered as we talk about hope, is so inspiring because, yes, some people are born with it. Some people are that kid who show up with an umbrella because why wouldn't you? It's going to rain. And yet what we know is that hope can be taught, and it must be taught. It must not be simply a characteristic like you're tall, you're short, you're pretty, you can sing, you're a good athlete. But it must be taught. Teachers must give homework in hope. Doctors must give prescriptions in hope. We're teaching our kids to be as healthy as they can, removing vending machines from school, improving the quality of school lunches, because we know what they eat changes how they think, how they act, how their lives will be. Will we take in not just the food through our mouths into our stomach, but we take it in from what we hear, from what we experience, from what we live. And this is where we need to bring hope today. I know time is really short. I want just to share one personal reflection. I realized as I sat and listened that this was a time of personal stories of hope as well. And my life has been filled with so many of them. But as I listened to our beloved Alex, who, by the way, just hats off to you. I mean, really.
Thank you.
You're a superstar in so many ways, and it's just beautiful to see and beautiful to witness. And as I was listening to him talk about feeling pulled to that which his mother would have had a fit about, I thought, well, all right, out of all of the stories of hope, let me also share one in which my heart pulled me, the divine pulled me in a direction that, yeah, would have left my mother screaming. And yet, it also has not just hope for listening to that divine voice, but you'll hear how that thread weaves through it. So, do I still have a few minutes? Okay. I lose track of time completely. So the very, very quick 60-second version of the history leading up to that moment. I was 25. I grew up in Los Angeles, quite literally in Hollywood. I had absolutely the very best that this world can offer. And by this world, I don't mean the earth. I mean this world that we conceive of as that which one would want. Money, education, opportunity, big house, big cars, this, that, the variables in the happiness equation that most of us are given, as in, if you have this, 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 and this, you will be happy. And that was the world that I was raised in. A lot of privilege, a lot of opportunity. I graduated from Stanford University. I was in the midst of getting a PhD in pediatric neuropsychology. And went to India at 25 with a backpack on a short trip, what I thought was going to be just one semester off of my PhD program. Had an extraordinary experience of divine connection, standing on the banks of the sacred river Ganga, the Ganges River, which I didn't even know was sacred. I was not a religious person. I was raised in a Reformed Jewish family. Wasn't religious, wasn't even one of those people who say, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I was an academic, I was a scientist, and in the midst of all of that, I had also experienced severe sexual abuse in my early childhood. I had then experienced abandonment that, as I turned into adolescence and early 20s, manifested in my best attempt to self-soothe, which was bulimia. I was in and out of hospitals with tubes and IVs and doctors telling me that if I didn't stop, I was going to die. By the time I went to India at 25, I had gotten to a place where I was managing my life. Getting straight A's in school, managing my anger, managing my emotions, managing my relationships, my life. And I thought that was the highest goal. Okay, so we fast forward. Obviously the story is longer, but for right now, that's what we have time for. But we fast forward to me being in Rishikesh. I've had this incredibly powerful experience. I know that I'm meant to stay there. About a week later, I meet the revered leader who is the head of the ashram that I feel called to stay at. Why? Because I had heard a voice that told me, you must stay here. I wasn't a mystic, I was an academic, but I heard a voice, you must stay here. I finally get a chance to sit alone with him. I'd been in the ashram maybe 4 or 5 days. It's been maybe 10 days or so since I had this incredible experience of connection with the divine, of realizing that I was not separate from the universe, that I wasn't separate from the divine, that regardless of what had happened to me, I wasn't bad, wrong, dark. So I say to him, I feel so grateful. Is there anything I can do for you? You've blessed me so much by letting me stay. Is there anything I can do? Now here's the scene. 25-year-old white American girl who has no idea that orange robes mean celibacy, who has no idea what the words Swami or Sanyasi mean. 45-year-old Indian male renunciant in saffron robes, lifelong celibate, revered spiritual leader. We are sitting alone in his inner rooms. I pose this question to him. He looks at me and he says, anything? Because I had asked him, is there anything I can do? He says, anything? I can hear my mother's voice screaming in my head, just stand up and walk out. But I knew in my heart that whatever it was he asked, I would give it. And I said, yeah, anything. And he keeps looking at me with this intensity. And he says, you promise? And now, along with Mom's voice, I can hear the voice of a very, very renowned scientist named Dr. Phil Zimbardo, who was a Stanford professor and my favorite professor, who taught classes in mind control. He was the one who Waco happens, Abu Ghraib prison scandal happens, and CNN is there. Here we are at Stanford with Dr. Phil Zimbardo. And I was one of his only A+ students ever in his history at Stanford. So he's now shouting in my brain, just walk out. Stand up and walk out. But I knew. How? I knew. By realizing the rightness of me, the rightness of my intuition, the rightness of my heart. And I said, yeah, I promise. Knowing that, yeah, whatever it was he asked, I would have done it. And he looks at me and the hold breaks. He smiles, he giggles, and he says, okay, 3 things. Number 1, get closer and closer to God every day. Every day you should be closer to God at the end of the day than you were when you woke up in the morning. Number 2, serve humanity. He said, you've been so blessed. You've been given so much. Use everything you are, everything you have to serve. And he said, lastly, be happy. And he holds out his shawl. And he says, any pain you have, he says, just give it to me. He says, just give it to me. And be happy. And I share that story because it's a story of trusting our own intuition, but because, given who I was and the history that I had had, the idea that there was a man who could have had anything from me, and the only thing that he wanted was for me to get closer to God, to serve the world, and to be happy, for me was a shining light of hope and what's possible when we trust and when we learn to open our hearts and trust again. And I have so much else to share, but I'm going to end here. I appreciate the freedom and spaciousness, and time is important. So I will end here, but I want to just end with a very quick other favorite story of mine of the little boy who's going to school. And on the way to school, he's so excited because he says to Mom, today we have the auditions for the school play. And he wants a part so badly. And his mom tells him, you're going to get a part, don't worry, you're going to be great. And he comes home from school and he says, guess what? I got a part in the play. And his mom is so happy for him, but also grateful that thank God he got the part. And she says, what part did you get? And he says, Mom, I get to sit in the front row and clap as loud as I can. And I love that story in conclusion because it's, again, the awareness and the reminder that it's not about what tomorrow is going to bring, but about how I can see and be the light of perfection in this very moment. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity of being with you, for the incredible work you're all doing, and I look so forward to staying connected and bringing hope wherever we can, in whatever ways we can. Thank you so, so much.